Hey guys, it's me. I'm sorry I'm really far behind on this video, but I still wanted to show you what I made so far for my final hip hop project. Um, as you can probably tell, I'm not recording this from my computer because for the life of me, any screen capturing video app I try to use, my computer says I don't have enough storage, and as much as I delete, it just seems to never be enough. So we're gonna try this. I'm trying to hold this as stable as possible. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I think the images are clear enough and the audio should be able to capture what's going on. But yeah, this has a lot of content in. For the final project, I wanted to compose a lot as well as show, represent a lot of the techniques that we learned in class in terms of sampling and mixing and editing. So this is a huge jumbo pile of everything I tried to apply and invest a lot of time in. So I'd really appreciate your guys' feedback and critiques, because I know there's some things that could be cleaned up a little bit. And I'd like to see, what you guys think. And I would definitely suggest listening to the AIF file with headphones, because there's some panning and other things that I think it's just easier to hear with headphones than listening through this type of tutorial. So let's get started. As you can see, there's a lot of instrumentations in here that I used. I was a little crazy, but I'm just going to explain my sound concept a little bit. This is something that I really couldn't do at the same time as creating this video because there was so much work and we wait too long. So I'm just going to explain what I've done. My sound concept wise, I use a lot of sound patches that Logic already has. So I started off using my MIDI keyboard with vinyl, which is this kind of white noise, crackling. It sounds like, it's one of those older vintage songs. So that's the kind of vibe it gives. And automation wise, just so we can take a look, when you press A, I kind of try to crescendo that up a little bit. I don't do too much to it frequency wise because I think it's okay as it is as a starter. And then, kind of random, I actually downloaded a YouTube video, which was just coffee shop background noise, converted into MP3, and chopped it up and used a portion of it to include for the beginning, just because I wanted some people talking. I know a lot of people kind of use this kind of creative way to start off songs, and I kind of wanted to do that as well. And so I kind of let that, it's pretty soft at first, so I increase it and then decrease it a little bit as I have this weird laughing track. I don't know, I find that fun as well. So I include that, and then it starts off with the actual song. So we'll play this first so you can kind of hear what's going on. Hear it. But there we go. I'm stopping there. I know it's epic for the climax, but so basically, yeah, that's kind of the intro of my song, and you kind of get a portion of the hook in there of, what's going to be continuing playing throughout the verses, and then I have a bridge. So I should show intro and then my two verses, and then you'll be able to hear the transitioning points, and I'll explain what's one verse versus the other. It transitions to the hook, to the bridge, and then back to the hook to the closing. So just so you can have an idea. I should have shown that from the very beginning as a sound concept. But anyway, to show some other things I've done, like I said, all of this so far is composed. The sampling is really the bridge, which is much later. But I use different sound patches because I really wanted to focus on timbre, so I use this transitor radio piano, as well as a regular Steinway sound patch. And then automation wise, I really did a lot with frequency later in the bridge. But you can see, you know, when you automate and you go to volume, and you can kind of focus on which things you want more in the focal texture. And the nice thing is when you loop things over and over again, it keeps that automation, which is really nice. Now, actually, because it's hard looping, you know, normally you think you can just take the file, if it lets me. Let me, is it gonna let me? Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Oh, this is awkward. Oh, okay, wait. Oh, I really have to zoom out. Forgive me. I'm really trying hard here. Okay. You know when you get this thing and you can loop it easily, right? Well, the problem with me composing is I would do snippets of it instead of like completely playing it through, because I honestly didn't want to quantize too much. Because I did quantize this, absolutely. So what I would do is I would play like a section of it. So you can see I play a section, and then I would quantize it individually and then copy and paste it, because you know, even sometimes when you take something like this, right, and you go here, I actually have it off because I honestly would go into editor and make sure myself that it was aligned, because I find this sometimes way more useful than just pressing Q and having it quantized, because sometimes it's not exactly right. And this really gives you the opportunity to, if it shows me where the notes are, there we go. This really gives me the opportunity to really hone in on exactly the right beat, whereas sometimes even when you quantize it, it's not completely right. So I didn't want to do this throughout the entire thing, so I would take a snippet of it, make sure this is aligned with, you know, the lines I want specifically, and then copy and paste it. And so that's why there's spaces instead of it looking like it's completely looped. I just did a lot of copying and pasting and manual quantizing. Anyway, so yeah, that's why it appears like this. I know it looks like way too much work for that, but that's just how I roll. And then some of these are yellow because I used a different keyboard, which had some bass features. The Rolly keyboard that I use is very expressive, and you're able to, when you press the keys a certain way, it can do a lot more dynamics-wise than a typical keyboard. And so it actually, as you can tell, it's interesting how it expresses it on a Logic Pro X, but it really shows you automation levels that are just directly from the keyboard versus me using automation from Logic Pro X. So that's why, you know, it's really just me doing it through the keyboard, which makes things a little easier sometimes. So I go back and forth. Oh, right, and I'm sorry, I'm totally stopping this when I could be going on to the next part. I meant to mention something that I completely forgot. There's audio files I used of effects on here, which I turned into an audio file and then inverted it, because I honestly don't know how to invert this as a MIDI file, or I should say reverse it. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I couldn't figure it out, so I made it into an audio file, put it back in here, and when you go to editor, you go to file, and then you're able to reverse it. And I love reversing things. For some reason, I just think it adds a great effect. So then I have snapping, and then we really get down to business. And forgive me, I know there's a lot to look through here. I used a lot of different like 808s and snapbacks and other percussion instruments that I thought would be useful. So anyway, let's get to the actual meat of the song, which is what I should have played like 5 minutes ago. Okay, now before we get into the next part, because there's a lot more to explain, I just wanted to go through what the meat of that was. Also, I think I was going to use this track, and then I never did. So instead of you wondering why this is here, I'm just going to get rid of it. Because I experimented with a lot of things. Awesome. Save. So, yeah, my thought process was here to keep the hook, you know, the same piano chords, and then make sure I add my bass, and I also used trumpets just to add a little variety, as well as some of these are kind of like really in the back texture, these calming waves, which is, you know, this really like ambient soft A note in the back, and then I add more later. And then there's other types of pianos, as you could have probably have heard. Make sure I have all the automation up, if it lets me. There we go. And I did use panning for this. I should have mentioned that also from the beginning. If it shows me, wow, it's really not showing me that right now, is it? Forgive me again for seeming unprepared. Oh, wait. Am I missing something? I'm recording this at 5 a.m., so I'm probably missing something. Let me get rid of this inspector really quick. No, I don't know why the pan button isn't showing right now. It was showing earlier. Well, you can take my word for it. Uh-oh, now I lost everything. Oh, dear goodness. Okay, now it's showing. Or it was. That's so weird. I don't know why Logic Pro is glitching on me. Normally they have the pan button, which I think a lot of you know. Anyway, there are some, I promise, that are panned a specific way, like the radio piano and the bass that I use. There's this muted guitar that I use that some of it's panned to the left, some of it's panned to the right, and when it actually shows you the nice little dial, that's what I use. I'm not sure why it's not showing me. I'm sure it'll pop up at some point and I'll show you which ones are panned. But that's there as well. And other things I'm trying to remember to mention. I'm trying to think. I think that covers most of it. I'm sorry, there's so many things going on right now. But, you know, I've tried to add as many timbres with the percussion as possible in terms of the 808s and cymbals crashing and softer snares and that hard punch at the beginning with the snapback. And I make sure that I really increase it right here. Oops. Just to really get that emphasis. I've been trying to make it punch more at the beginning, so if you think it should need more, just, you know, give me your thoughts on that. And I keep the vinyl in there. So I think I've explained that to the most part, what I did. And excuse me as I try to condense this down. Honestly, there's probably a better way to organize it, but... Okay, so the next part that I want to show you what I did, because there's a lot involved, is where I started actually sampling. And for that, I've been using what we've learned, which is the Serato sampler. And I took a song that I love, and like I said, I do everything reverse, and I reversed it. So let me just get to it. So there's also kind of a modulation in there, which I realize is going on. But anyway, yeah, these sections are the samples, and they're on 2 different tracks for my personal reason of trying to organize which ones I want with an equalizer, and others I did not, and it was just easier the way to just separate them. But anyway, what I did, first of all, I should explain to the bridge, I wanted to make sure I try to transition as well as possible, so I use these blue chimes, which is kind of those like chirping noises in the back, just to add a new element, and then this really cool slide bass, which is my Rolly keyboard, where I literally just slide on my keyboard and it just is this really awesome chromatic bass thing to get to the muted bass, which has already been playing. Okay, and so in some of my percussion as well, you know, I try to sparse it out and make sure this stuff really stands out versus some of these other things that have kind of been consistent throughout the piece. And so, okay, now here, which is what you've all been waiting for. So, I made sure I had this plugin, and I hooked this up to my other keyboard, and it's fantastic, and I should really show you, let me just go to, I'm just going to show you all my files. Yay. Oop. Nope, now I can't read anything I do. Sorry about that. Looking at MUS, there we go. Let me just kind of play you the file.
When it's all said and done, will I see you? When it's all said and done, will I see you?
So you kind of get the feel.
Know that my love is on, all the way on you, I won't turn on. You ain't gotta hustle like that no more. I've been on a journey, I ain't trying to look back.
So that's what I was working with. It's in a completely different key in tempo. So it's really nice that with Serato, it automatically changes it, syncs it up to 120 beats, which is much more compatible with what I'm working with the beats I already have provided. And so what I did was with some of these, I still had to time stretch it a little bit, make it a little bit slower, and I changed the key a little bit just to make sure it fit with the notes I was already working with, and I reversed everything. So you can kind of see, I made sure all of them were consistent in terms of the time stretching and the pitches, and now you can kind of see how I sampled it, and I just did it straight from my keyboard. I chose my favorites and then just kind of meshed them together from different portions of the song. Oh, that's another thing that's kind of crucial to remember. When you're working with 2 different tracks, you have to pull up the other plugin. And so the reason why I keep going back and forth is because this specific part of the sample, I added this channel EQ, which is not, hopefully it'll show what I did. There we go. I wanted it to pop out a little bit because it's a little bit repetitive, even though I love it so much. I wanted this one little space where it kind of dove in a little bit and then just really crashed. And so with that, that was a high shelf cut, I believe. High shelf gain. I'm sorry, I used both a high shelf cut, which is like where you turn it actually on and off. And then I'm sorry, hold on. This one. Yeah, so you can see where it's actually going to show that it's on and off, and then you have to go here to actually be able to increase it a little bit. So that's why both of those are used. And I was trying to make it like this gradual, like, you know, equalizer to then go back to its original form with all the frequencies involved. So it still might not be the cleanest, but if you guys have any suggestions, please let me know. I know there's a lot going on. I use the reverse file of the sweep to just kind of add that punch, or increase the intensity to that. And then I'm trying to, I there was a moment where I did not use some of my I'm trying to remember which noises these are. Just some of the percussion instruments from these in the cymbals. And then other than that, and so the other main thing here is this was kind of hard. I really love this cool jazzy part, and I also know it's kind of hard to include that while you have this sample, which is really doing a lot, with this person saying gibberish in reverse with this little piano section. So I tried to increase the volume in parts where, the frequencies were a little more sparse and you wanted to focus on this, and then I tried to, mesh it as well together here. Again, whatever your feedback is, guys, I'd really appreciate it. And so finally we're getting to the end. That's the calming waves, that ambient tone. And then I leave off with final again, which then decreases down. So I think I covered pretty much everything of what I used and, the process behind how to use plugins. I should also mention something that I don't think anyone's ever mentioned in a video before, and it's very scary. Whenever you're using a plugin, because I was playing with a lot of these, you could be using Serato, you can be using the channel equalizer, or you could be using different plugins, like for my Rolly keyboard. If I go back here to one of these, actually let me go to the slide bass, because I knew that one is what I used. So for this one I used a very specific equator, which is something where you have to kind of find all the way down here to really find those. Just a tip. If you have a plugin open, if you X out of your file, like if you X out of this thing but not the plugin, and then it says, oh, do you want to save, and you press save, it will actually get rid of your entire project and only upload back the plugin, which scared the crap out of me because I was working on it and it only saved the plugin. Luckily there is an option for if I can remember where it was. There is a backups. Logic does save backups, about 8 of them. And so I was able to find my specific one like an hour before I accidentally just saved just the plugin. And it's very scary because almost everything was lost. But that's just a tip. When you're working with plugins, no matter what you use, if it's for another instrument, if it's a sampler, if it's whatever, effects come, for MIDI arpeggiators, or, simple audio ones for distortion and, affecting frequency. Make sure if you close out of this and not the other, do not save it, because it will, unless, you can always go back to the backup file, but it is very anxiety inducing. So I think that's one thing I like to express out of everything. I'm trying to think of anything else I can show you, maybe if you don't mind me going back here and kind of looking through everything. Counting bars, let's see, preferences, menu, sound output. I guess I can explain a little bit about the audio interface and controller connection. That's something I really should have done from the beginning, but that's just me, 25 minutes in. I use my headphones for this, so you want to make sure, I mean, obviously it's not on that, but you know, if you want to adjust your audio settings, it's saying temporarily using inbuilt-in output because it knows that I constantly use my either my speaker to kind of listen to it or my headphones, and my headphones are not currently on, but this is how you change your input and output devices. And because that's kind of crucial in using MIDI controllers. Counting bars, like I said, I just quantize manually. Set and toggle loop. There were times I did use just like the toggle loop instead of just copying and pasting like with the vinyl, because there's no specific beat I needed to maintain with that. So you just use, yeah, that circular loop and drag it on there. I did not do that all the time. Stop, play, and record, you know, same stuff. Play for stop, or spacebar for play and stop, and R for record. Oh, and I should mention something, that if you don't use the Serato sampler, it's it always trips me up. Wherever it is. I'm sorry, I have so many things on here. I don't even know where I'm looking for. Wherever my instrument person is. Here, right here. That's, I had to think about where this was. When you have this open, I always think when you press the space bar, this plays. It does not. This keeps playing. So for this, I'm sure maybe there's a command you can adjust to make this play, but all I know for now is that you have to actually press the play button manually. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're using a plugin. And so, yeah, I use, you know, different instrument devices. You could see what I just mainly kind of focus with equilibrium effect devices. In terms of automation, I used panning. I'm sorry, the panning isn't showing on this. And velocity, I really didn't focus as much. I just kind of played the song until I knew I was kind of getting the velocity right. On Rolly, if you're really interested with velocity, if you have a keyboard like this, if I can find what I just used again. If you hook this back up. Well, I also actually need the dashboard for that. I'm sorry. If you're ever wondering about how to use a dashboard, there's two components to the Rolly keyboard. I'm sorry, these always pop up when I try to show this. Yep. Well, I guess, okay, it's not letting me show. Well, basically you open up this and it shows you, I don't have my computer hooked up to this right now, but it shows you a velocity dial in which you turn, and your keyboard will actually adjust its own velocity. I thought it was also on here. It might be possibly because I don't have it on. But you can do it straight from these plugins. Or you can actually go to the region and you can mess with it here as well. But with my keyboard, I just find it easier when I'm playing, because there is a lag when you hit the key versus, you know, what gets transmitted to the computer. Sorry, I'm just making sure I cover everything on here. Yeah, we talked about that, finishing a beat. Like I said, I just kind of wanted I wanted the bridge to really pop out. I would imagine this with some sort of rap. I'd love to make lyrics to this, and I think it would sound pretty dope. And then you could kind of hear the ending a little bit just with me stopping and just kind of going into the vinyl. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And I think, yeah, that's about it. Oh, I should have mentioned my genre from the beginning. That's great, 30 minutes in. I wanted to focus mostly on contemporary R&B. And some of my influences also kind of came from Suit and Tie from Justin Timberlake and his kind of sound concept. And so I did try to focus on, having those moments of the sound effects of the swishing, and getting those pops of snaps in there. Using a variety of timbres for percussion. And really having some creativity, like with these trumpets coming in out of nowhere, and so that's what I was really trying to go for in terms of my genre, and I think that pretty much covers it all. If you think there's anything else I should have used for this type of genre, you want to give me some feedback, I super appreciate it. Because it's not something I've really composed before. And so I was trying to include a variety of elements, getting those, chord progressions in there. I'm so glad I was able to modulate a little bit with the bridge. And you do have that ear candy with the nice reverse singing. So even if there isn't any like rapping here yet, you still kind of get that vocal in there that really pops out. So I think that kind of defines what my song is really trying to do. So that's about it. Thank you for watching, and if you listen through the whole thing, props to you, because I keep talking. Anyway, give me some feedback. Let me know how it is. Listen to the audio file, and I'm very open to suggestions. So thanks again for watching. Have a good one. Bye.